Hello my lovelies, so it is a pre-recorded Mentoring Monday. It's the middle of the Easter holidays. I'm surrounded by kids and chocolate. There is no way that I am going live on a Monday morning this week, but my commitment to show up to you guys every Monday and pass on some of my experiences as being a yoga teacher for the last 13 years, I am here for you. And this week, pretty practical advice actually, a little bit of mindset thrown into it. But I want to talk about how you arrange your schedule. And I'm going to primarily focus on those of us that are going out and teaching weekly. But we can also think of our schedule as our monthly schedule and our annual schedule. So, we don't just have to stick to a model where you go and teach week in, week out. But, if you've got a retreat-based business or a training-based business, what am I doing around leading up to that training, that course, that retreat? So I've got the energy to deliver that retreat. So the advice, even though your model may be slightly different to going out and teaching weekly, the advice here will still be useful. So to try and stay focused, I am talking about 3 common things as yoga teachers we may need to look at when we're looking at arranging our weekly teaching schedule. And the first one, I was so guilty of this, particularly when I first started teaching too many of the same classes. So first of all, if you are out doing 4 vinyasa classes a week and they are full, just ignore this. But if you've got 4 vinyasa classes a week and they're not full, you've got 8 in one, 10 in another, 5 in another, I want to ask you, what would happen if you dropped a class or you dropped 2 classes and got yourself to a place where you had 2 full classes or 1 full class with a waiting list? Now, I hear you. You are right now thinking about those students, those people that you see every week that you have a relationship with. If you stop their class, you are now thinking, I'm letting them down. I want you to know now, this is never going to go away. So I'm tweaking behind the scenes. I'm tweaking my teaching schedule in the next couple of months. And I have wrangled with this for a good many months before coming down on a decision. Of course, because we care about our students, and that's a good thing. But sustainability is paramount if you want to serve. So if your teaching schedule is too busy, if you are giving too much every week, at some point you're going to burn out. At some point you're not going to be able to show up for your students. And being smart with your time. So having 2 full classes. All right, not everyone's going to be able to make those times. Okay, you can't please everyone. People pleasing is the mindset. The mindset here. You can't please everyone, but having 2 full classes where you have got a good hourly rate, a good energy exchange, okay, is much better for you than having 4, half, 3/4 full classes. But you get your 2 full classes or your 1 full class, you get your waiting list, okay? You're creating a sense of demand, and also your waiting list tells you there's a demand. Then if you wanted to, you can go on and expand your timetable from there with the same class. So have a look at your schedule. How many of the same classes are you teaching each week? And how full are they? And if they're not full, I would ask yourself, is there something that you can let go of? Is it at the quietest class that you can let go of? Some of those people at quieter class will then go to your other classes. I'm working hard with this at the moment. We sometimes have to let go of things to allow things to grow. And that can be a really hard mindset. Sometimes less is more. So, mistake number 2. how have you arranged your schedule? Are you spreading yourself too thin? So this comes up a lot actually when I'm working with those on my pre and postnatal teacher training course or my toddler teacher training course. They're often yoga teachers that have an established timetable. And when we're thinking about when they might add in a pregnancy yoga class, a mum and baby class, a toddler class, the first question I ask is, what are you currently doing? What's your current teaching schedule? Because the temptation is, I'll give you an example, okay? I'm teaching vinyasa on a Monday, vinyasa on a Wednesday, hatha yoga on a Friday morning. The temptation is, well, I'll add in my pregnancy yoga on a Tuesday night and I'll put a mum and baby yoga on a Thursday morning. Before you know it, you're out teaching 5 days a week. Now that might suit you, but I definitely, particularly after having young children, got this nailed pretty quick. Once I'm out, I'm out. Okay, and maybe my background as a school teacher, there were days where sometimes as a school teacher, I'd be teaching 5 classes back to back. So there may be a bit of a history in me for being used to teaching classes back to back. But I really do believe that a smart way to arrange your timetable is that you are, at least when you're going out, teaching 2 classes. Whether it is a private followed by a general yoga class. So let's go back to when I'm talking about when people might put in their pregnancy yoga class. So someone says to me, well, I've got a 7 o'clock, hatha yoga class on a Monday night. I immediately ask them, can you do a pregnancy yoga class before then? And that's really important because it means once you're out, you're out. That also does lead into my next point. How do I expand my teaching schedule? So let's say you have got, a couple of classes, a couple of full vinyasa classes a week. Taken my advice, you've dropped a class that was quieter, you've focused on filling and those 2 vinyasa yoga classes, and you want to expand your schedule. But if you just start a 2nd and a 3rd vinyasa class, that might spread your current community thinner across those 4 classes. You're not earning significantly any more money. You're just giving away more of your time, okay? Which will lead you to burnout. So this is where adding in a specialist class would work quite well. I've given you the example of, let's say you do an evening class, you do your pregnancy class, try and make your pregnancy class your first class. Pregnant women don't like going out late. And then you do a vinyasa class, a hatha class, or let's say you do a vinyasa class. Because this is the challenge with your schedule already. This comes up a lot actually when I'm working with those on my pre and postnatal teacher training course. They've got a full 6:30 vinyasa yoga class and they've got me telling them, wow, can you put a pregnancy class in? A good time for the pregnancy class would be 6 o'clock once women have finished work, but they've got to make a decision to disturb a popular class. And I'm then a little bit, disturbing a popular class is always a bit of a risk. But one of the things I've written down on my list, when I'm crafting my weekly teaching schedule, yes, I'm trying to be smart and trying to think of times when classes will be more popular. So an evening pregnancy yoga class, early evening, is going to be more popular than a late evening pregnancy class. A weekend, mid-morning, 10 o'clock, pregnancy yoga class. Saturday is going to be more popular than Sunday. Vinyasa yoga class at 8, 9 o'clock at night. People aren't going to be really up for being that energetic at that time of night. So you are trying to pick times where you think, most people would come to that class. But at the same time, the other thing mixed into this equation is your availability and the availability of a studio if you're teaching in person. And you do have to often prioritize, this is going to work for me. whenever I've done this, whenever I said, look, this is just going to work for me, it's going to work for some people, I'm going to go with it, it always works for me. It always works for me. So thinking about expanding our timetable, I'm thinking about you guys that are going out in the evening, you've got your one class, and you're thinking, if I offered a slightly different class, I'm out, I can increase the use of my time while I'm out. So things that would work, instead of coming to train in my pre and postnatal teacher training course that I keep going on about, what about a beginner course? So therefore, I would keep the vinyasa class at 6 o'clock and then put your beginner course the slightly later time, 7:30, for example. Or let's take a more daytime model. Those of you doing daytime classes, well, if you have got a quite physical class, a great time for that is post-school run or pre-work. Again, I'm never going to be able to do a 7 a.m. class. I do school runs, so it would be pointless for me to try and make that happen. That isn't going to work for me. But you might do, your post-school run class, teach your mums and dads and granny and granddads that have dropped kids off to school. Then, if you wanted to add a different class in, you could add a toddler class, a mum and baby class, you could add a chair yoga class. So you are targeting a very different community. But you're out, and you might as well get a couple of classes going, but they need to be different classes. If you teach the same class back to back, you're just spreading the same number of people over a bigger period of time. Now, when we're thinking about in-person classes, the space that you're renting, they all are different. I appreciate that. Some are on an hourly rate, but some may be on a sessional rate. And what I mean by that is it doesn't make any difference. The session is a 3-hour session. They say it's a 3-hour session for £30. It doesn't make any difference whether you do one class, 2 classes, or even 3 classes, but there's, let's say that in a 3-hour session, that's too much. But the session rate doesn't make any difference whether there's 1 or 2 classes within that 3-hour session. So you might as well maximize the time. Or another thing I often encourage my teachers that I work with to do who are thinking about expanding their timetable, if they're on an hourly rate, I will say, well, look, go back to the venue, say you'd like a second hour, and ask, because you're booking an additional hour, if there'd be a discount. You never know. The answer may be yes. So I think I've covered, yes, I've almost covered everything. Finally, I want you, it kind of goes back to that, I'm going to teach, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Monday night, Saturday morning, Sunday evening, odd classes all over the place. You've got to feel like you're working all the time. Batch your time. Honestly, batching it's been a revelation to me. So I have Tuesday is my teaching day. I have a heavy schedule on a Tuesday, 2 or 3 classes in the morning, 2 classes in the evening, but I'm in the teaching zone. And then I have other days where I'm marking. I have other days where I'm thinking about my social media content or my newsletter. So I'm batching my time. So I know this stuff is going to happen and I'm not panicking about it. But also when I'm teaching, I'm focused on teaching. I'm not trying to wear my other hats. And in amongst all of this, you have to factor in time for 2 important things. They are rest, okay? You need to rest. So teaching every day is going to be physically demanding on your body. Unless, of course, my tight teaching schedule is a great example of that. So let's take Tuesday. I'll teach toddler yoga, 1 or 2 mum and baby yoga classes. They're physical, but not massively physical. Pregnancy yoga, yin yoga in the evening. That's a lot of classes in one day, but physically, if that was me trying to teach the Ashtanga primary series 5 times in one day, I would struggle. But that can be one of the other advantages of expanding into different niches, different styles, targeting different communities. If you're not all teaching very physical classes, it enables you to teach more. Then, as well as factoring time for rest, you've got to factor in time to get to a yoga class for yourself. Whether it be in person, whether it be online, okay, it doesn't matter. But as one of the very common thing that happens, as we start too many classes, we try and think, well, we'll do a class here because that's going to suit this people. We're going to do a class here because it's going to suit this people. Try and please as many people as possible. We teaching too many classes at all the popular times. And you're like, well, when am I going to go to class? And you don't go to class. And because you're teaching so much, you don't have the energy to practice. And over time, you lose your practice. Don't let this happen to you guys, okay? Teaching yoga is ultimately the sharing of the experience of the practice, your experience of the practice. That's why it's so important that you teach. That's why there can never be too many yoga teachers, because we all are unique, because we all have a unique experience of the practice. I'm not saying that I'm going out and teaching all the time what I'm doing, but my practice over the last, God knows how many years, 16 plus years, informs my teaching, and it informs my teaching today. And I'm human. I go through phases where I don't have time to practice that much, or the surf is really good, okay? But I know that if I don't keep the spark, the love, the flame alive for yoga, then that translates into my teaching. I forget my whole reason why, plus my experience of the practice informs the teaching. So factor in time for rest, factor in time for your own practice. So I hope that's useful. What would be good for you guys to do now, for those of you that have got quite a busy teaching schedule, to step back and look at the data. I know looking at the data can be boring. What I mean by looking at the data, as in how many people are going to each classes, which classes are profitable, which classes are less profitable, what happens if you let those less profitable classes go and focus your energy on growing what's working and get those classes full. For those of you that are thinking about building your schedule, or those of you that are just starting out, get that one class nailed, okay? Get that one class nailed. As you're nailing that one class, your interest, your passion, your niches, whatever you want to call it, will begin to emerge. And from that, you can begin to grow. As you expand your teaching schedule, you are not adding in the same style class until you've got a full class, okay? Or fullish class. You've got a sense of demand. If you want to expand, a great way is to expand into different communities, i.e. specialism, chair yoga, yin yoga, rehab, pregnancy, mum and baby, yoga for the menopause. Like, it is endless. And ask yourself, what am I interested in? What am I passionate about? How can I help people? How do I want to help people? And if you go from there, your schedule will grow, the money will come, your offering will grow. Factor in time for rest, factor in time for the practice, and I'll see you all next week.